Tom Gregory here on the east end of Long Island in Southampton, New York, to visit one of America's most exciting artists. And he's right here from Southampton. Hey, Paton Miller, how are you?
Hey, Tom.
Paton Miller, it's nice to meet you. Now, before I go on, Southampton, the East End, has been a home of a lot of great art, right? Great artists. We get Pollock, de Kooning.
Well, it goes back.
Ross.
It goes back over 100 years. You know, William Merritt Chase and Thomas Moran, and then it moves on into the modern era. So there's been quite a few painters there.
Right here on the East End of Long Island.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is?
Well, they've always talked about the light, and I think that's true. It is beautiful out here. But I think it's also just the fact that they could probably get a farmhouse for people I knew bought farmhouses out here for $20,000.
When was that? Go back.
You know, back in the 30s and the 40s.
Older
people.
Okay.
Yeah, older
not
people.
Yeah. Now you can't even find a farmhouse. So if you can, it's going to be a housing development.
Right. Well, the prices are dropping again, but it's all relative, isn't it?
You've been out here how long now?
Since '74.
So you've been out here an awfully long time.
Yeah.
You've seen a lot of change.
Yes, but I've seen changes. I grew up in Hawaii. Changes were there.
You grew up in Hawaii as a kid?
Right. And everywhere you go, there's changes, so I'm used to it.
Let's go look at a few paintings.
Yeah. So this started out with him on the table as a model, and then I just lifted him up because he was sleeping, and this seems more like a child sleeping.
This is really fascinating. I love the color splash. You do that a lot with these different colors, don't you? You really utilize colors, and your paintings have a really rough texture, almost like clay or earth. I mean, there's something very...
Well, it's like this area here. Yeah. I use pigment in the paint.
But I mean, the feeling of it, it's not for the timid, is it?
This tractor painting, one of the things that's disappearing quickly out here are the farms. Kathleen King, who owns Tate's, it's a big bakery concern.
Right.
So I said, Kathleen, I would really, if you want one of my paintings, I would like to paint your father. And so I did the paintings at her house, but at the same time I painted this tractor. So this is Tate King's tractor. It's interesting, people around the country will say, oh, you live in Southampton. And they have this image of Southampton being like a real glitzy place because of some specials that have happened. You've probably seen them.
E-entertainment type thing.
Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Right.
And but for me, living out here all these years, my friends are fishermen and farmers and artists. Most artists I know are kind of like cabinet makers. There's nothing glamorous about an artist. They work in a studio and they're usually alone all day. You know, artists are like shoemakers. You know, a big part of my paintings, I was just talking about this the other day, is adventure. You know, there's a lot of artists that have spent a lot of time painting angst and the 20th century schizoid man and all that, you know what I mean? But everybody likes a good trip. When I came back from that 3 years in Molokai, we came back here with nothing. We were really at one of those, it's typical in artist lives, you have your ups and downs. And the recession was, there was a huge recession in 1989-90 in the world, and the art world was particularly hit by it. I did not want to be moved up into this price range where I didn't, you know, where if another recession came along, you'd be stuck up there with your ascot and your beret on, but you're not making any money, right?
Because you can't sell it; it's too expensive.
Right. So that was the only.
You can't be marked down once you're a pie guy, right?
I now have dealers working for me, of course, but for a while I took over my own career and just did it myself, and it was a crazy thing to do, but it worked, and I was able to finally get the house. We have properties now, not just one, but we have, you know, a couple of rental properties, a farm in Costa Rica. You know, I'm not bragging. What I'm saying is I had to take things into my own hands. Well, yeah, it's a funny thing about it. Every painter is different, and the way I handle paint is quite a lot of it. I like to paint them up. It's a physical thing.
Thank you, Pat Miller, again. Thank you.
Okay, Tom.